You ready to do this, Stu?
Kinda. Punch it, Chewy.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Stu Jones.
Chew.
We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 98, the last time the Bulls won a championship. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on our website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week in your ear holes. Stu, how are you?
I'm so glad that is the last time I have to hear about the Bulls. As if I weren't miserable enough.
Dig that knife in just a little deeper. Hey, when we get to episode 2016, I can talk about the Cubs. So there you go.
I'll let you have that one then, because that's the only one you'll get.
Sad. Panda is sad. So what's going on, Stu? What's new?
I'm sick. I had a cold. This has been a miserable weekend. So I just laid up, not doing anything. I took a sick day from work today. Even when I'm sick, usually I can do my job, and today just was not that day. So, I mean, that's really been most of what my week's been about. Before that,
do you need me to come over with some chicken noodle soup?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's pause the podcast. I'll go make some homemade, and I'll bring it over.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for bringing over the chicken noodle soup. No one will ever even know the magic of technology.
Hey, I'm glad to help out, man.
Appreciate it. Other than that, nothing really going on last week. Stuff, living. Not a lot to report. Not a lot coming up. At least not this week anyway. So just living the dream.
Did you get much gaming
my nose. Actually, I'm glad you asked that. I started Pathfinder Kingmaker, which is kind of a two-part thing. One, Pathfinder is kind of an adaptation of Dungeons and Dragons. Did some important differences to the D&D system. It was based off of, 3.5, where they had the open D20 license. So they developed this Pathfinder system, which took off and is not as big as D&D, but definitely a competitor, and they do some really great stuff. So they came out with Pathfinder Kingmaker, which is developed by an independent studio that was kickstarted. It's kind of half adventure, where you go through like Baldur's Gate or something like that, and you've got the isometric point of view, and you go and kill monsters. You got lots of spells. You have lots of spells. They have all the classes in Pathfinder that I'm aware of. Many choices, and that is done really well from my perspective. The overland map is kind of like a Pathfinder or D&D miniature of your character, kind of like moving along the map. The narration of the game is told from the perspective of a bard who's in your party telling your story. That was a neat little twist. And then the other part of the game that I haven't gotten to yet is that you then build a kingdom, like a city management kind of thing, where you're building buildings and you're getting resources, and you have certain members of your party who are responsible for parts of managing the kingdom. So I'm really looking forward to getting into that. For being a Kickstarter game from an independent studio, this thing is brilliant, and I'm loving it. I'm only getting to play it in like little bite-sized chunks. I did get some WoW in, just kind of doing stuff there right now. Having a hard time getting into like the raid stuff, and being sick over the weekend, and so it's just hop on, talk to some people I know, and then hop back off, and that's about it.
It's interesting. I've you're talking about WoW and this new thing. By the way, that new one, what was the name of it again?
It's Pathfinder Kingmaker. It's on Steam.
I said I'm assuming it's just a Steam since it was a Kickstarter.
Yeah, but I mean, if you like customization options and all that kind of stuff, it's I would say more plentiful options than any D&D RPG I've ever played, including the Baldur's Gates and stuff like that.
It sounds really cool.
I'm loving it so far.
I've got a confession about WoW right now.
Uh-oh.
I haven't played in like 2.5 weeks, maybe almost coming up on 3 weeks now. I've just been busy, and when I've got a free moment to sit down, like I don't know, like I haven't felt the compulsion to sit down and log into WoW.
Yeah. The funny thing is I love the gameplay of Battle for Azeroth, especially with the PvP focus and stuff like that. But there just really isn't. I mean, there's the raid, but there's not really much to look forward to yet. So I don't know. It doesn't feel compelling for me to really log in much either.
I'm still not even 120. I'm like 118 and a half. And I know that, once you hit 120, then I got to unlock a bunch of other stuff. And,
yes.
I've got kind of end game, content to start digging into. Mm-hmm. And I plan on doing that. I'm not ready to abandon ship yet. But I've noticed that I think one of the reasons I loved WoW back in the day, like really loved it, was the social aspect, like you were mentioning. The ability to talk to people and log in and, work on stuff together with people or whatever. And I'm not really playing that way this time around. Like, I've got you and another guy I know for my work. And those are like the only two people that I talk to or play with. And it's been a while now.
Right.
So, I don't know. Maybe I'd need to go find a guild or something, because I just, I don't have any reason to oh, hey, let me check and see if so-and-so's on, because we talked about running a dungeon or running a raid or running, looking for some sort of legendary item or, anything like that.
The funny thing is the friends that I'm talking to, I actually ventured into a roleplay server, and I just kind of happened onto them. I've played on roleplay servers before, and WoW roleplay is not necessarily the strong suit, so it was kind of lucky. I'm playing on Alliance side these days. But that's just to unlock all the stuff I want to unlock, and
right,
because I have unlocked everything I can potentially unlock with the Demon Hunter right now. So as soon as the first 8.1 drops, and there are going to be Zandalar trolls as a playable race, their druid forms are like dinosaur kind of deals, and I will be starting a level 20 Zandalar druid.
Cool.
And I'm super stoked for that, as well as they've started dropping some hints about where the storyline's going and things. And it's going to be more focused on the end game side of it rather than the leveling up side. So that'll be a nice segue. And I mean, I still enjoy it. But yeah, no super compulsion to do anything, but there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. For me this week, like I said, I haven't played much on the video game aspect. Not really played WoW. Didn't do anything else really. But I did have a busy week. So this weekend, my mom's husband's daughter and her husband came to town to visit, and we're kind of friends with them. Like, we've kind of become friends with them just recently within the last year, and kind of getting to know them and their kids a little bit. And so they came up to celebrate my mom's husband, Roger's birthday. And so we went over there and kind of hung out with them, and they were going to make dinner, but they were going to be running late, and they asked if I could cook it, and they were going to do tri-tip. And I said, sure. And I said, have you ever had smoked tri-tip? And they said, no. And I was like, yeah, me neither. Let's give it a try. So I brought the pit barrel cooker over to my mom's house.
Potbelly cooker.
The potbelly cooker over to my mom's house. I'll give this one to you, man. Relax. So anyway, we made tri-tip in it. And then I also brought over these chicken, pineapple, bacon sausages that you can get at Costco. And I smoked those. And those were really good. And then we smoked some broccoli. I was like, let me try that now. I did it at the very end when most of the smoke wasn't there, so it's just a hint of the smoke and more of kind of the charcoal briquette flavor. And that surprisingly was pretty good. I was rather impressed. It was just broccoli, olive oil, salt and pepper over some charcoal briquettes.
The only way I like broccoli is raw. I like you cook broccoli in any way, and it just instantly turns to something I don't want to touch.
You don't like it when it's smothered in cheese?
No, actually, I don't.
Wow. That's usually how most people love it. They're like, oh, you got to have nacho cheese all over that. But
yeah, I'm not about the only thing I like smothered in cheese is nachos. Like Arby's, everyone I know goes crazy over the beef and cheddar things. That's
yuck.
Disgusting.
Yeah. Now I'll eat my curly fries with the cheddar sauce.
Oh, well.
But I mean,
there's two things wrong with that.
Not the beef and cheddar. Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, cheese belongs in certain places, but
it does. I don't like curly fries either, though. So,
I haven't had curly fries
I'm a communist,
in forever.
apparently.
But yeah, let's see what else. I went to a CrossFit gym on Saturday morning.
Oh, that explains the glow.
Yeah. That's also called I'm in extreme pain and I've been using, heat packs. No, I'm just teasing. A buddy of mine, he used to own a CrossFit gym, sold it years ago, but he's still pretty active there. And, I've been exercising some and losing some weight this year. And so I was talking to him and he says, why don't you come down here and I'll show you a lot of the proper ways to do some of these lifts and some like these, kind of full body workouts. I'll show you a lot of pain. Yeah. Actually, it wasn't that bad. However, we did a lot of like little things and worked a bunch of little different things body-wise, like legs and arms and upper back. And my legs they're letting me know that they're not happy with me. Let's just put it that way. I see like 3 stairs that I have to go up to get upstairs. And I'm like, honey, can you just bring me something to eat? She's like, I'm not making food. You have to come upstairs. I'm like, I'll pass. I just don't want to go up 3 stairs. My legs are sore right now.
For different reasons, I can totally sympathize.
Yeah. But I did that and it was good. I did enjoy it in so much that I ordered a medicine ball that I've got being shipped to my house tomorrow to do some different exercises here at the house. I'm a crazy person. What can I say?
Who are you?
I know. It's so weird. It's like, ooh, I'm buying health books and exercise plans and medicine and, equipment and I don't know, whatever.
You need this book that I'm holding up here. It is Thug Kitchen, Eat Like You Give Up Bleep.
Nice.
It's supposedly, though I look at these recipes and go, there's no way. But it's supposedly fairly reasonably simple stuff to make, all healthy. It's vegetarian, but it's like directly kind of in your face, and it doesn't mince words about, what you're going to like about it, what you won't. And I got this a little while ago, and actually this weekend I am going to be making tortilla soup that,
I'm listening.
It tells you try not to lick the bleeping page. It tastes nothing like the recipe, so that's cool. But I mean, it's all homemade. Gonna go from scratch. I'm gonna make it Friday night and probably live on that for the weekend. Morgana's not gonna be home this weekend, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes.
That sounds good, man.
I'm stoked. I like experimenting in the kitchen, but the tedium of day-to-day cooking, not so much. Anyway, please continue.
I get that. So I'm doing that. Let's see. Oh, we played D&D Thursday evening, keeping our game up. We had a player not able to make it that session, and so we had someone kind of drop in and play, and it was just goofy and silly, and we ended up just like laughing ourselves, just like into tears at a few points. But it's man, I'm really loving it right now. Like I'm loving the adventure. I'm loving the ability to just kind of role play and kind of free associate and just like, oh, you guys totally did something that I didn't expect. Let's just roll with it and let's see what happens. And I'm really liking that. So hearing you talk about the what you were saying, oh gosh, the Kingdom Maker game you were talking about,
Pathfinder Kingmaker.
Pathfinder Kingmaker. It just really kind of has like my interest. I'm like, I may take a look at that a little later on tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's keep in mind it is a full price game. It ain't gonna be cheap.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take a look at it, see some screenshots, and, read a little, if they got like a little video to watch, something like that. Maybe the Kickstarter.
Maybe. I'd be surprised if they didn't, but I mean, even the screens and stuff do tell a pretty good story, so it's worth looking at.
Cool.
It's definitely, so one of the funny things is like some of the other really big CRPGs that have come out recently that I've been into, there's Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2, which I have frankly loved, and those are worth checking out. Bard's Tale 4 is recently released, and I just have been so busy that I couldn't really check it out. But there's another CRPG, trying to find it on the list here. Oh gosh, what is that? Anyway, I'm drawing a blank. Pillars of Eternity. That's been a modern one that's been kind of like the successor to some of the Baldur's Gate stuff. I really like that, but for some reason did not grip me in any way. Pathfinder Kingmaker it's got hooks in me, so I'm excited to see where that goes. I'm impressed.
I'm about to take a look at it. Did I also tell you that Nathan, who's in our D&D group, bought me the Tales from the Yawning Portal on Roll20? Did I tell you about that?
I saw that somewhere. I don't think you told me.
Maybe yeah. So
I think you posted it something in Facebook, maybe?
Maybe we're talking on the Discord.
Yes.
Yeah, and so Nathan and I were just kind of like looking at some of that because it was a bunch of like really old modules written by Gary Gygax and a few others back in like the late 70s and 80s. And they basically took them and basically brought them up to the 5e standard, which is the current generation of Dungeons and Dragons. And they made them work in the new generation. And then they just kind of combined them all into one big book or one big module. And you can run them as individual, like little individual modules, or you can run them all together as one big massive campaign. And we were looking at it because it had a few notables, like the Tomb of Horrors, that a lot of people would know. And if you've read the book Ready Player One, that would sound familiar to you as well. Even if you're not a D&D person. But we were looking at it, and he was like, "Oh, that looks really cool." And I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm like, maybe we'll have to check this out later." And then I literally walked away from my desk, and I came back like an hour later, and I had an email that said like, "Hey, Anonymous has gifted you this." Da, 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 da. And I was like, "Did you just do that?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "That is awesome." And so like we were pulling it up and looking at it, and so I think we've got some stuff down the road we can continue on with besides like the stuff we're gonna homebrew and kind of come up with. So it was kind of cool digging through some old Gary Gygax stuff last week and this weekend.
He was a hack. What did he know?
What does that guy know? What has he ever done for anyone? Prevented a lot of babies from being born.
Fair enough.
Anyway, that's all I got for my week update. Really weird note to end on.
Yeah, I'm a little disturbed. I'm gonna have to kill some Bothans now, just to feel better.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Stu, Rebel Intelligence, what do you have for me this week?
Hold on a moment. I've got the Imperial March just going on. I'm just rolling with it. Oh, right. Not Star Wars. I have something about Star Trek.
Ooh.
So a little while ago, we went over the initial teaser for Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery.
Yes.
Initial impressions there were that it basically, especially compared to Season 1, which was so dark, Season 2 felt a little Disney. It was definitely seemed more friendly. They focused on some lighthearted adventure type moments. And it did not have that same kick you in the back and force you to get into the darkness of Star Trek and kind of live in there for a little bit. Well, they've come out with the full trailer for Season 2. We see a lot more of the crew. We see a lot more of Captain Pike. We see a bit of Spock.
We do.
With a beard.
Yeah,
With a
he's going
full beard.
on lumberjack.
Well, the funny thing is, I mean, and the moment I saw this, I went to a very specific thought, which the writer of the article I'm kind of looking at went to the same place. The only time we've really seen Spock with a beard is Mirror Universe.
Yep, his goatee.
Back in the original series stuff, yeah. Or, right, goatee, right. I don't necessarily think that's it. It's probably going to be, he's been, in a coma for so long, something. I don't know. We see him coming out on a gurney. Doesn't really matter. All speculative at this point. But we see more of the action. We see more of what they're up against. It is still kind of lighthearted, especially in comparison to the first season. But I am not as trepidatious as I was. It actually looked pretty exciting. It looks kind of like what I expected Discovery to be to begin with, before it kind of got its claws in me. So, if the full trailer has any, is a really good indication of what we're going to get from season 2, then that'll be very welcome. Also, kind of on a related note, I don't know if you saw, but the Star Trek shorts.
Yeah.
That has kicked off, and the first episode of that is available on that paywall that I'm not paying any money to at the moment. So yeah. I haven't looked at it. I'll wait probably, sadly, either... I mean, I know some piratey type individuals that, pilot ships across the Atlantic. Maybe they somehow have a copy, or I end up waiting until the end of the season and just kind of binge it all together, which would be unfortunate, but I'm not paying that stupid thing.
Right, pay it just to watch the little shorts and then stop again and then start again. Yeah.
Even with season 2 there, I can't justify that cost for one show.
Yeah, so going back to what you're saying on the full trailer, I watched that full trailer too, and I felt like the teaser trailer I enjoyed, but that's because I really loved the first season of Discovery. So for me, it was like yes, this is just a little bit more of a show that I want to see. But I didn't feel like there was enough to hook maybe people who hadn't watched the first season, hadn't given it a chance.
Oh, for sure.
But I definitely feel like this trailer is more of the hey, this is, we're giving you a more in-depth look. Here's a bunch more things that are going to grab you and say hey, pay attention to this. There's a lot of stuff going on. And I think this one is definitely more geared towards, hooking people that maybe didn't get into season 1.
Maybe. I do know that that whole first teaser almost seemed to singularly rely on the image of the Enterprise to get your attention.
Right.
This does, we do see some Enterprise, but we definitely, that is not what you're focusing on through the whole trailer. So that's a good thing. I'm glad they have a tie-in. I'm glad that that's not going to be just a gimmick to try to get you to feel nostalgic and watch the show.
Yeah. I did have the same thought you said about kind of the Spock and the beard and the Mirror Universe. And then, side question, have you seen the TV show Community?
No.
Oh, dang it. So
we've talked about that before.
I know. I can't remember because in Community there's a season where they kind of do an alternate reality, kind of like a mirror universe, except there's 6 different mirror universes.
Oh, good.
And one of them is kind of a evil universe, and one of the main characters, Abed, he cuts out with felt a little goatee, and then he sticks it on his face, and it kind of looks like Spock's goatee from the mirror universe. And then they all end up kind of wearing those kind of goatees, or him and Abed, or him and Troy do. And it just makes me laugh every time because it reminds me of the Spock Mirror Universe, episode. But
gotcha.
All right, well, that's a show you need to get into. I'm just saying, I think it would be up your alley humor-wise.
Add it to the pile, man.
Yeah, I know. Put it near the top. Well, good. Like I said, I liked it. I saw the preview for this. I can't wait for season 2.
Agreed.
I don't know if I'm going to wait till it's all released and then do it or how, but definitely I want to get it.
I'll get you in touch with my pirate broker friend.
That's probably a good idea. Let's see here. Okay, so we've heard for quite a while that Jon Favreau was doing a Star Wars show, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to do a live action show. But he's kind of been kind of cagey with it, hasn't done much, hasn't said much about it. But it went into filming film production started like end of last week. And so like the day after, he put a picture on his Instagram that basically revealed the name and plot synopsis of the upcoming show that's going to be on Disney's streaming service that doesn't have a name yet. It's called The Mandalorian. And the description, the plot synopsis says, after the stories of Jango and Boba Fett, another warrior emerges in the Star Wars universe. The Mandalorian is set after the fall of the Empire and before the emergence of the First Order. We follow the travails of a lone gunfighter in the outer reaches of the galaxy, far from the authority of the New Republic. And that's pretty much all we get. All we know is that and the name. And so now it's like, rumors and speculation and, people going nuts without getting into that stuff, because I don't really want to get into a lot of that because that's kind of crazy. What I hope, though, is my hope is that since we're going to be out on the fringes, following a lone gunfighter, my hope is that these are unique stories. They're different stories. They're not going to try to do the whole tie-in and nostalgia necessarily, and let's find a way that Boba Fett and this Mandalorian end up hooking up and partnering up after the Mandalorian saves Boba Fett from the Sarlacc pit, I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
But it would be kind of cool though to see some stories that actually has some sort of an impact eventually, like something that ties in later down the road. But even if that doesn't happen, I'm okay. But I don't want it to be don't make a bunch of callbacks, have it be unique, have it be its own thing. And let's make it like the seedy underbelly of kind of the universe, like the, kind of what we thought we were going to get with that Star Wars game called 1313 that was going to focus on bounty hunters.
All right.
I mean, that kind of would be kind of a cool thing because it would be a different side of the universe we haven't seen a lot of.
Well, with one little twist in that bounty hunters would often have to go into Republic space and do stuff to get their bounties, right? So I have a hope similar to yours that this is entirely
original. Is it a
original.
New Hope?
No.
Oh, dang.
Nope. Sorry. It's Revenge of the Hope.
Oh.
But I do hope that it's all original content. I would like to see kind of like a space cowboy kind of thing. I dare I say something more like a Firefly kind of a situation.
Yes.
But unfortunately, I think we have one thing working against us, and that is the timeline situation. As especially as an EU fan, that sweet spot at the end after Return of the Jedi, before Force Awakens. There's so much content there. There's so much about the story that happens after. I can't imagine that choice of timeline is going to be deliberate without some kind of connection to either forward or backward. So my anticipation is that they are going to tie it in. However, if they're going to do that, I hope they do it with maybe a cameo or two per season, or something that just kind of gives a tiny hook, but doesn't overemphasize the importance of that hook, so that it's still a focus on the show itself.
Well, if you remember Star Wars Rebels, in the first season, you got a few, well-known characters you see, but they're just real quick.
Right.
And they don't really have big lasting impact on the show. They don't become a recurring character you see every single episode.
That would be a good approach. But then season 2 of Rebels.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I don't want to have happen. I mean, nothing against Rebels was well done.
Which I'm watching with my kids. I didn't tell you that, did I?
No.
I've started the boys on Star Wars Rebels and trying to get them to watching a serialized Star Wars story, because they're so used to watching these Disney cartoons that they can watch over and over and over and over and over again, and it never gets old.
I just need them to release the Disney streaming service, and then I'll be all on board. I actually haven't seen all of season 2. Morgana and I try to watch Rebels. Every time we get a little bit further, her attention is a little more solid into it. She enjoys it, but then this last time we were 4 episodes in before she kind of started losing interest. So I'm just hoping that as she grows into it just a little bit more, the interest is there. She loves Star Wars. She loves talking about Star Wars. Rebels is definitely a show I want to be able to watch with her. Clone Wars was a little disjointed and difficult to follow because the timeline was not continuous throughout it. Right. So trying to have a serialized story that's not in order is a difficult thing for a kid to wrap their head around. It's very difficult for me to wrap my head around, maybe trying to watch it in the chronological order or something. But I think Rebels is the perfect show for that. I don't know. I haven't seen the new one, but once I have Disney streaming, I'll be all about all that nonsense.
Yep.
So, me?
Yeah. That's you now.
Who's Brita? Whose turn is this?
Brita.
Okay. Well, we've talked about Venom a little bit, and as probably everyone should be aware, that at least Venom has released. It's out in theaters, and I already kind of know you're going to be Mr. Pessimism here. But in my optimism, Venom is actually doing well from my perspective, being is that it's broken records for films in October. Domestic haul for first weekend, 125.2 million. Overseas, 58.8. Or I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. I'm all over the place.
Yeah,
80 million.
It's like 80 million.
80 million. Sorry. I apologize, super friends. Forgive me. Especially Caleb. Be nice. So, as you and I have talked a little bit, those are not impressive numbers overall. Right. Compared to October numbers, that's pretty fantastic. But also, I kind of wanted to... there is some comparative analysis available out there, and I think the biggest thing that's telling is that they really only expected Venom to earn between 50 and 60 million. So, add another third to that. It's doing better than they were expecting it to do. I think that's a very good sign for the movie, especially since I was even a little afraid that it was actually going to tank. So this movie is not tanking by any means. Maybe not as good at numbers as a movie released any other time of year, but people don't traditionally even watch movies in October unless it's, Halloween crap. So, Halloween stuff. Halloween movies are not always crap. I'm cranky. But I think it's doing well. I think it's doing better than anyone had a right to expect it to do. It's already made, it surpassed its budget of 100 million. So that's fantastic. And this, I think, helps anti-hero movies in general kind of be a solid option. So. Okay.
I'm gonna agree with you here on a few things. Yes, it did break October records. However, it's not a big month. So it's kind of like saying hey, I can beat up, sixth graders when I'm a, junior in high school. You should be able to do that. Typically October movies are, the Halloween fair, the horror stuff. And those movies can do good in their own right, but they're not big blockbusters. So there's that. But I mean, still, it did make more money than I thought it would. I was expecting this wasn't going to crack like 30 million.
I think for me, it's more about, yes, it could be doing better. It could have been a major blockbuster released at any time and done superb if it were that kind of movie. But the fact that it's getting people to see a movie in October when they normally wouldn't by itself is a kind of telling victory. So yeah, but I mean, I'm excited to see it. I really want to see it. Unfortunately, this weekend was, unless they released it to my face about 3 feet in front of it, I wasn't going to pay attention.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I'm not super interested in it. I mean, that's just kind of all there is. You're not
Superman either.
No, that's true. Unfortunately, I don't know. The other thing is, I've heard from a lot of people, because there was also this controversy where people were trying to give it like negative reviews, like not review like professional reviewers, but like normal people were trying to give it negative reviews, create fake accounts to give it negative reviews, so they could give Lady Gaga's A Star Is Born like positive reviews, and on Twitter trying to be like, I went to see Venom and it was crap. I'm going to go take my wife and kids to go see A Star Is Born, which that made like really good money for that type of a movie. Like it made something like $30 or $40 million. So it had like a big opening.
So you'll say that Venom with 80 million did crappy, but Lady Gaga's movie with 30 million did well.
I'm going to say
Can we check your math?
I'm going to say that a superhero movie coming in at $80 million was still good, but it's not like big, massive blockbuster numbers. But a little small, kind of musical / drama, $40 million on opening weekend, that's a lot for that type of a movie. That really is. But so let me get back to the point, though, I think I was trying to make. I don't know. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. Is that I've heard from a lot of people that actually went to see the Venom movie. Really, really mixed reviews. Like my brother went and saw it, and he said he hated it. Said it was really kind of boring. I've heard from a lot of people the pacing on the movie's all over the place. Like it's funny and it's kind of good action, but then it kind of doesn't seem to lead anywhere. It doesn't seem to go anywhere. But then we had a few of our super friends on Twitter that went and saw it. I think Eric Green and Paul Calicote went and saw it, and they said they really liked it. They thought it was a lot of fun, and they had a good time at it. So the reviewers, professional reviewers, the critics are slamming the movie. It's like 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I'm hearing mixed reviews from fans, and so I don't know if that's just fanboyism, wanting to say it's good because it's what they wanted. And then other people are saying like, well, it's good if you ignore the actual true origin stories of Venom and you're okay with Spider-Man not being in it, then it stands apart on its own as a decent movie.
So that tells me I'm probably going to like this. I am not someone who really... I'm, you know what? If it's going to be a good movie on its own, I don't really care if it sticks to the source material. I actually think it's a good thing that they shake things up and make something new so that people who are familiar with the source material still have some surprises. I don't want to look for a retelling of something line by line of something that I'm already familiar with. So if that's the only thing that really holds it back for people, then I'm all for it. I'm going to go see the stupid thing. It may also be that it's just really a movie that will only appeal to some people for whatever elements are in there. Maybe not generally superhero movies, obviously. And movies like that do exist, and that's fine. So,
right, yeah. So we'll see. I'm on the fence about it. I'm not super enthused about it, but maybe I'll go use my AMC Stubbs A-list and go see it. So
we should talk this weekend.
All right, let's do that. Because that's probably the only way I'm going to go is if you drag me to it.
We'll get on the freeway, hit 100, go one exit too far, come back around, and it'll be fun.
That's exactly right. So New York Comic Con happened this last weekend.
Wait, can they still call themselves New York Comic Con?
Apparently they can.
Jeez.
San Diego International Comic Con, you better get on that, start suing everyone. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, New York Comic Con went on this last weekend, and there was some news in kind of the Star Wars. There was actually a lot of news, and I tried to call and try to find something I thought was interesting. There was a lot of stuff that was interesting. There was the Hellboy reboot that's starring what's his name? The guy that plays Jim Hopper from Stranger Things. Apparently, they showed footage there, and it looked amazing. But of course, they don't have any footage online, so I didn't want to really get into it. But there's been a whole bunch of books and comics in the Star Wars universe that were announced at New York Comic Con. Chuck Wendig, the author of some of the Star Wars Aftermath, some of the books that kind of take place right prior to The Force Awakens, is coming out with a Darth Vader focused comic book series. And I believe it's called like a Shadow of Vader. It's going to be published by Marvel. And so he's doing that. There's a book coming out that I'm really kind of interested in by Alexander Freed called Alphabet Squad. And at first I was like, we're talking about Google here? What's this? But really what it is, it's a novel that basically is going to detail kind of this, this group of fighter pilots in the early days of the New Republic, right after Return of the Jedi. But they're named Alphabet Squadron because you've got an A-wing pilot, a B-wing pilot, a Y-wing, an X-wing, and then I don't know if it's going to be a T or an E wing, but basically it's like one of each type. And so they're going to
Still
be
could come up with a better name for that.
Yeah, probably. But I loved those old Rogue Squadron books in the old EU,
sure.
which considered like legacy now that, aren't really canon. As you can tell, I'm still a little upset about that.
I will never not be upset about that, I think. So.
Right. So it kind of has that feel to me. Basically, they're trying to hunt down this Alphabet Squadron is trying to hunt down rogue Imperial elements. We don't know a lot more other than that, but kind of cool fighter pilots chasing down Imperials. That sounds good to me. There's a book, a novel coming called Master and Apprentice, and they released some cover art for it. That book's coming out in April of 2019, and it looks like the Master and Apprentice is going to be a novel that focuses on Qui-Gon Jinn and Anakin. Which
have they just given up on writing good titles though?
Maybe, but
if the book's great, so be it. But
some of the old EU book titles weren't that great either, if we're being completely honest.
Yeah, but many of them were. So
yeah, some of them were, but some of them were like, all right, this is like New Jedi Republic, young Padawans, blah blah blah. And you're like, oh,
well, yeah,
gosh,
but those are for
like,
young adult reading, right? So
still, it takes like a paragraph to get the title across. I'm just saying. So anyway, lots of cool stuff was revealed. There was actually some really cool Star Wars toys. There was a statue, like a little figure of Luke Skywalker from Last Jedi, for when he's kind of like brushing the old dirt off his shoulder. And I was like, ooh, that looks good, but I don't even want to know the price on that thing because it's probably way too much for my wallet. But anyway, New York Comic Con, big thing is happening. Shout out to my boy Thomas King, who plays in our D&D group. He was held up this last week because of that, so he was working and we had to get a replacement for him, but that's why he was missing. So
gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what I got. More Star Wars goodness coming down the pipe.
Right on. Coming down the tunnel?
Coming right down the old Death Star trench.
Trench, that's the word I was looking for. Go. I am not on Prime Form here. I'm not like, the Queen of Sweden or anything.
There's a Queen of Sweden?
There is a Queen of Sweden. Sort of. So, in good Arthurian fame and probably more hilariously and appreciated fame for me with Monty Python.
Right?
There was this girl, 8 years old. She and her family, they're American. However, they moved to Sweden like a year before this occurred. They're kind of living near a lake, and this girl's out swimming, and she finds a piece of metal, just a little ways in the lake. Pulls it out, looks at it. It's like a crappy piece of metal. She goes to throw it back, however, notices that there's a point on it, and that there's some other details, and kind of checks it out, gets her dad involved. She finds this sword that a local museum estimated is about 1,500 years old.
Wow.
And that this is the only sword of its type ever to have been discovered in the area. So it's still being looked at, apparently. But, carbon dating being what it is, 1,500 years old. Locals have dubbed her, for pulling the sword out of the lake, the Queen of Sweden.
Nice.
So she is now befit to rule all of Sweden, and I hope she does so with an iron hand.
What is her name?
What's weird is she's American, but she's got a very Swedish name. Saja Venecik, I think.
All hail Queen Saja Venecik.
Are you Swedish?
Well, my wife is like a quarter Swedish.
I have about 1/32 Swedish, whatever. My mom's side of the family was from all over Europe. My dad, biologically purely German, so interesting enough. But they have a new queen. She's definitely taken control of everything. But no, I mean the sword. I mean that's really interesting. That to me that there are still things to be discovered. There's still new things to be uncovered, and I mean the sword is new to the area, so that obviously has some historical tale behind it. They believe that they also found a prehistoric brooch after searching the lake again. So same period as a brooch.
Brooch. Okay, I was like, what is a brooch?
It has two O's. Who the heck pronounces things like that anyway? But they originally thought the site was a grave site, but now they believe that it might have been a place of sacrifice.
Bum, bum, bum.
I don't know how that's drawn together from that. Doesn't explain, but there you go.
Yeah,
I want to move to. I want to move to Sweden now.
Right, because you have a chance of pulling a sword from the lake and becoming the king of Sweden. Here's the problem, though, Stu. You're gonna have to marry that 8-year-old girl.
Well, yeah, I'm not even going to draw any parallels to Charles and Diana, so because Charles met Diana when she was a little girl. Just saying.
I know. Also, you're going to have to talk like the Swedish chef.
Oh, Forka Borka Burka. Have you seen the Swedish Chef versus Gordon Ramsay?
No.
Oh, you must.
I need YouTube that, is what you're saying?
Yes, you absolutely do.
Okay.
It is, that's hat tip to a friend of mine that I'm playing WoW with. It's ridiculously good.
Okay. I'll have to check that out. So we can go away from your sillier story.
Oh, this is dead serious, bro.
Right, totally. Brought into a seriously, ridiculously bad idea type of story.
Oh, good.
So, you know how we say that the idea of making a video game into a movie isn't a great concept? It hasn't really turned out very well most of the time.
With some exceptions, but yeah, generally true.
Some minor exceptions, maybe, sure. But, it's had some spectacular fails.
Mario Brothers.
Oh, definitely. I feel, Stu, this next one is going to be right up there on the list of spectacular fails. I'm calling it now. Before I even tell you what it is, stamp of approval, Fortress of Nerditude, I think this is a bad idea.
Well, you don't speak for both of us. I haven't even heard of this idea yet.
Trust me. I got you on this one. So,
I'm not your bra, bro.
Listen, bra, I know what I'm talking about. I can't even stick with it. Okay.
Okay, Chad.
So Variety is reporting that the company Konami, which we know from games like Metal Gear Solid, Castlevania...
Are you kidding me? We know them for the Konami code.
But that too. They're going to come out with a movie based on a popular franchise, Dance Dance Revolution. Yes, you heard me. DDR is going to get a movie based on it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no, go ahead.
I need to apologize. You do, in fact, speak for both of us.
Thank you. So this is what cracks me up.
No,
right?
They've got to have interactive pads on the movie theater floors.
So okay, this is like. I mean, I'm like, okay, what is this gonna be, like a dance-off movie? This is gonna be like, some like, this hip-hop crew versus this hip-hop crew. They got beef on the streets. Let's take it to the arcade and settle it on some DDR. No.
Oh, can I guess? Yeah, is it the backstory of the avatars in the game?
I don't know about that, but my guess is, and what according to Variety, this is the pitch for the movie. The project will explore a world on the brink of destruction, where the only hope is to unite through the universal language of dance. If you could see my face right now, you would know that I don't only think this is a bad idea, I think this is a major stinker of a bomb.
He's got some serious stink eye.
Come on, man. This sounds to me like we saw freaking Ready Player One, and we think we could do Ready Player One, but with DDR. And instead of trying to free ourselves from an evil corporation that's trying to take over this immersive interactive video game experience, the world's going to be on the brink of destruction. Nuclear bombs are going to fall from the sky unless we can get together and just have a dance off, and everything will be okay.
No. Okay, so to be fair, my role is devil's advocate to everything here. There's nothing I can say. This is just terrible.
How are you going to come back with that? To be fair, Dance has always been an interpretive thing for a long time, and many cultures have come together. And so I feel that this could unify. Blah. No, yeah, there's nothing. This is a bad idea, Stu.
I don't know. Maybe the anime crowd may go for this.
I think even the anime crowd's going to hate this. You know who this is going to appeal to? Konami. And Konami only.
Well,
I hope they've got a big war chest, because this is going to hurt their company's bottom line. Just saying.
Well.
All right, well, that was
Good
super
for
negative
them.
of me. Let me...
Yeah, can we go back to like other more palatable things like death or
your
movie
8-year-old
pass?
soon-to-be wife.
At least she's older than my younger daughter.
That still is a creepy thought.
I will wait till she's an adult. Don't worry. I'm not lecherous in that way. That's just terrible.
Have you seen that SNL skit from a number of years ago where it's like, meet your future wife?
No.
Oh, you got to go look that crap up. You will laugh.
I'll look that up. You look up. You'll look up Borka Borka Fork.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, that's all I... Oh, gosh, let me get off this. That's all I got for Rebel Intelligence. Do you have anything else?
Well, no, I actually kind of want to go into the Dance Dance Revolution thing a little bit more. I don't think we've fully explored all the facets that this could be, that could offer for discussion.
By all means, go ahead.
Can we now need to reference this as like some kind of... This, even before even seeing it, this is going to be some bottom limit that we reference when things are really terrible. It's going to be the DDR movie situation. Okay, anyway, let's move on.
Well, Stu, last week we had a conversation, like we always do. This time we talked about... Yeah, I know, right? We talked about the idea of, do movie ratings matter for the box office, and then do you use movie ratings to determine whether or not you're going to go see a movie, because that obviously would impact the box office scores. As we saw, it doesn't look like Venom is being hurt much by being a PG-13 movie.
No.
I really do wonder what it would be like if it was rated R. I know I saw a lot of speculation over the weekend saying they heard it was supposed to be R. They heard the director's going to release the R-rated cut when it comes to DVD. And then the director says, I didn't make an R-rated cut. So I don't know if these are the same people that are hoping for the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. I don't know who these people are, but...
what is it, Comcast customer service looking for the Batman movie?
Right, yeah, exactly. But we asked the question to our super friends, and we got 2 responses.
Ooh.
Now, I mentioned 2 responses because... And I have to lay this caveat down. I was really busy this weekend, and I forgot to put out the question on our social media and ask the super friends. Usually we get a lot of responses. This is on me this week. This is all me.
All you. I mean, I could have reminded you
You usually do, but you were sick, so I'm going to give you a pass. This is all on me, buddy.
All right. Well, you pork chop pizza. No, you DDR movied it.
Oh... You gotta go there, do you? Okay, let's go to the email where we always start, with Peter Christensen. Dear nerds, I've been a casual fan of Elon Musk for a while, even applying for but not receiving a job at SpaceX once. His appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast episode 1169 a few weeks ago was interesting. He came off as really smart weirdo who wants to make the world better. Also, the memes of him smoking weed were hilarious. I rewatched X-Men Last Stand recently, and it's not as bad as people make it out to be. Sure, it was at the tail end of a happy, campy superhero movie era that was obliterated by The Dark Knight, and sure, it gave us the Juggernaut, but I think people were mostly upset about the death of several major characters. It was fun, cool, and felt high stakes. Plus, I've got no complaints about Famke Janssen as Jean Grey.
Can you do that again? I don't think I can pull that off right now, but I need to.
On behalf of Stu.
Thank you.
And by the way, that was added for effect. He didn't actually gurgle as Fletcher. Although I'm sure mentally maybe he did.
A lot.
Yeah. Sorry, Peter, if you know your wife listens. Not bad. Says, I've seen all of the X-Men movies, and they have some of my favorite movie scenes ever. Nightcrawler's attack on the president, the team fights versus Sentinels. So I'll watch Dark Phoenix, hoping for the best. P.S. As far as recasting from the young class, I would keep James McAvoy as Xavier and Michael Fassbender as Magneto and lose the rest without shedding a tear. Yeah, those are solid calls, too.
I like Jennifer Lawrence, sorry.
Well, I mean, Jennifer Lawrence is Jennifer Lawrence, but
But I agree with the sentiment.
Yeah. He says, follow up on watching trailers. There's so much movie news now that it's discouraging to hear something interesting about a movie that's coming out in 18 months. Also, I don't avoid trailers or plug my ears at the theater. I just don't seek them out for movies I expect to like. Which is, I think, kind of what I felt when I read Peter's last email about that. I didn't think like he's sitting in the movie theater, plugging his ears, closing his eyes, going, la 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 la, don't talk to me, don't talk to me. I didn't think he was doing that, although now I'm thinking of him doing that after this email, and I'm thinking that'd actually be really funny. You should do that and see what happens with your wife or your kids, what their reaction
or
is.
Or the rest of the theater, just at the top of your lungs.
Oh, man. What? A new Star Wars movie? La 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 la. Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. I don't know. Choir warm-up activities.
Oh,
Mommy,
man.
maybe match my M&Ms.
We're going to have to report on the Dance Dance Revolution trailer and teasers when they come out, you know?
Oh, no. Please, no. He says, I definitely take ratings into account when picking movies, but it's not the only factor. In my mind, the ratings break down further into G, PG, PG-13 action, R, important but horrible parts of life like war, PG-13 mature content, and R, other. I'll let my kids watch pretty much any of the first three, which was G, PG-13 action. Mm-hmm. I'll watch the important R-rated movies like TV, Band of Brothers, etc., and pretty much avoid the rest. Sometimes I'll check additional sources like Common Sense Media. It has a comically thorough amount of detail on each movie, but it gives you what you need to make your own decisions. A recent case was The House with a Clock in Its Walls, which is the title you and I fumbled for.
Yeah, I want to see that, so I'm interested to hear about this.
He said, we decided against it on reading that there's a lot of necromancy and blood sacrifice. It was rated like Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which I'd show any kid, but it sounds more like Half-Blood Prince, which is a pretty messed up movie if I'm honest. I appreciate the MPAA and other resources that make it easier to decide what to see. Cheers, Peter Christensen.
There you go.
I like though that he has like an external, like a third party source. Like he's just not relying on like Rotten Tomatoes or like what friends are saying, but like someone who goes in and breaks it down. What do you say? The Common Sense Media, where it says like these are all the things that are in the movie, not making a judgment on it one way or another, but just These are all the things in the movie. You make the call.
So I actually love that he goes into the detail that he does to investigate movies. Me, I'm not bothered by anything. So it's really just a gauge of what am I going in to expect it to be adult oriented or not? But I absolutely believe in the choice to make as a parent or as an adult or as an individual, whatever, to use information to make those kinds of decisions. And for someone who cares about them as much as he obviously does, that's exactly why I think we have the system in place.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I really liked it. And the House with a Clock on Its Walls, like I kind of wanted to go see that, but I knew that just from like the trailer, it looked like it'd probably be a little too adult for my boys right now at the time.
Sure.
But it is interesting. Like, you know, I think I may go check out that website and kind of see what's all in it just to make sure. Cause it sounds like if Peter's saying his kids, and I think he's got kids that are a little older than mine. And then probably, I think a few that are maybe one or two that are near-ish that age.
Well, if you like it, you should toss the link up for the Super Friends.
Yeah, the website put it up on the social media. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, not a problem. Anyway, moving over to Twitter for
because I can't be bothered.
Yeah, I know. You're sick, man. You're sick. I'm giving you a pass.
Yep, forever.
For this week. Next week, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. Stu. Phil. The Dragon's Lair at Turpin Rich says, for me, they do not matter. If I want to go see a movie, I go. If I don't, then I don't go. If I am undecided, then I wait for a rental. Movie reviews are completely subjective, and I have seen horrible movies that nobody should ever see get rave reviews, but have no redeeming qualities. So, once again, I think we're seeing that, kind of going into what Peter said, and then what Rich Turpin here is saying, that I think for an adult, if it interests you and, and you can handle that, and you make that judgment call, right?
Yep. I love ratings. I mean, even if I don't use most of the information there, I love ratings. Reviews really kind of like the same idea that we had when we were talking about video games and stuff before. I'll look for relevant information, but as far as the love it or hate it kind of thing for a review, it's almost meaningless to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Well, unfortunately, those are all the answers we have this week because I'm a big idiot that forgot to do it. But
so we're going to feel 15 minutes of Dance Dance Revolution soundtrack.
Sweet moves. Perfect.
Your Dance Dance Revolution playthroughs are a lot different than mine.
Yeah, mine's like, keep trying. You'll get there. Please step off the mat. You're embarrassing yourself.
You're playing the wrong game.
Next, this week, today, when we record, I promise we will make sure we get the question out and we'll get it out to the social media. But you can always respond to us at all of our usual places. That's going to be our email, which is fortofnerd@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, which is facebook.com/fortofnerd. We're on Twitter @fortofnerd. And we also have a phone number, which is 801-477-7687. And you better get those little twinkle toes fingers all warmed up because we're rapidly approaching episode 100 and we want to hear from you. You can type, sure, but we want to hear from you. So
just don't record an audio of yourself typing. That's not the right thing.
Oh, because then we'd have to guess what they say. Or we could make up things we think they're saying. That could be fun.
This is a whole new game in play.
Yeah, I like it. Stu, what can our super friends do for us this week? How can they help us out?
More chicken noodle soup. I need it.
You mean the chicken noodle soup I just brought over earlier?
That's why I said more. Enough? That's why I'm more. I need more.
Well, hold on. We can pause it right now. Let me bring some more over.
Whew, that really hit the spot, brother. All right. Well, there's nothing really left to do but to leave 5-star ratings on the iTunes. Jeez.
On Epix? What is Epix? Is this something new?
I was about to say App Exchange. It's the Salesforce thing all over again.
Yeah.
On iTunes, because nobody gives a crap on the App Exchange about our podcast, I promise. But if you're on iTunes and you can leave us a 5-star rating, say a few kind words, help get the word out as usual. Our numbers do go up, so that's coming from somewhere. Please keep at that and help get us more visible. And again, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, tell your buddies if there's something specific, especially that you're liking on the podcast, it's worthy of discussion in whatever social circles you have to be in. Mention the podcast, and hey, we'll send you a brownie in the mail. Already eaten brownie, so sorry.
So we're gonna send them poop in the mail?
I didn't go there.
You didn't think that went through all the way, did you? The brownie was fine. And
I wasn't thinking it all the way through. I don't think that all the way that through. You're a sad man.
I know. What can I do? So Stu, this weekend I was over at my mom's house, and I brought over
your mom.
NES. I know.
I've been waiting to do that for weeks.
I was at my mom's house, and I brought over my NES Mini Classic.
Nice.
The first night we went over there, my mom has an old Retron, which is kind of like you can plug in NES and Super NES games into it, but it doesn't really work very well, and it's kind of janky. And so the next night on Sunday, I think it was, I brought over my NES Mini Classic, and I plugged that in since it's HDMI, and then I had my cable extenders because the controllers are way too short. And my boys and their boy and maybe some of their girls were playing some of the old school Nintendo games. So they were playing like Tetris. They were playing Super Mario Brothers 3. They tried playing Kirby's Adventure.
Nice.
What else did they try? I think they tried like Excite Bike maybe, which was kind of funny because Charlie and Jackson have never played video games before. They've always watched Daddy play video games.
Mm-hmm.
But they were trying to play some of the old school, and Roger, my mom's husband, came down, and he was kind of watching for a little while, and he just mentioned to me, he's like, Spence, do you have better looking games than this at home? And I was like, yes, I do. And he's like, okay. He's like, because he's like, these games are like really old and kind of crappy now. He's like, I thought you would have had something better. I'm like, yes, I do, but I didn't want to bring my PS4 over here because I don't trust my kids with that $60 controller when this whole system costs $60. And but anyway, I was playing this, and I played a little bit with the kids and was kind of showing them how to do it and whatnot, and like showing them how to get used to the D-pad and the 4 directions, and hey, there's only 2 buttons, A and B, and you got your start, select, whatever.
What is this old analog madness?
Right, which it felt so good to hold that controller again. Like for some reason, like even though it's uncomfortable as sin, and it
My
digs into
thumbs
your
are blistering
palms,
just thinking about it.
but like for some reason, like I put it in my hands, it's like, yes, childhood. And it's warm and it's embracing, and I feel so safe and whole and pure. And then I remember, oh yeah, I'm about ready to chuck this thing at the screen in a minute because I'm playing Mario 2 and I'm going to get really frustrated here. So I had to be like, okay, it's your turn, buddy. And then I walked out of the room. But as I was doing this, I was thinking, like, I have these old games, these games that I love, these retro, what's considered retro now, games that I love.
Which retro is in vogue.
Retro is in vogue, and we're seeing, we saw the NES Mini Classic, and then the SNES Mini Classic, and now we know PlayStation's going to be re-releasing this. But my question to you is, like, do you ever wish that you could go back and take older games that you loved as a child, or just even a few years back ago, like 10 years ago or so, and like remake them, or get like newer versions, updated versions of them?
No, I don't really think about that, but you know what? I just happened to think of 4 off the top of my head.
Wow, that was quick.
No, there's it's funny because there is a game. There is actually a very specific game that I keep my eye on. They actually released it on Steam. And this is like from way back in my childhood, which is before the way back in your childhood. This was
barely.
There's a game Archon, which it's kind of like chess, but with a D&D flair to it. Like instead of just knights and rooks and pawns, you've got wizards, you've got monsters that are the pawns, and the board is not just 8x8. It's kind of, there are actually different boards and you can work your way through them and stuff. And it was a really neat take because chess I loved to play, but I'm a very serial thinker, not a very parallel thinker. So, planning out all 16 of my men's moves at once is not where I'm strong. But this game was just enough, and you had like spells and different things you could cast as your character. So I loved the crap out of that. Played that probably over 300-400 hours. Played it, I believe, on the Commodore 64 and Atari 400. I'm frankly surprised that hasn't been remade, honestly, because that had a very huge following. A lot of people still talk about it, looking through forums and things like that. I would love to see a modern version of that, even if the rules were exactly the same with cleaned up graphics, and animation and those kinds of fun things. I think if it were reintroduced to a modern audience, it would be fantastically received. That's not a real phrase, but I just used it, so there you go. But okay. Yeah, so I'm all about the strategy games like that, and I would love to see Archon.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
You were looking it up, weren't you?
I kind of was, because I never played it.
You want to now, don't you?
I kind of do. So this isn't the first one that I thought of, but it is one though that's like one of the older ones that I thought of. So when I was a kid, and we were getting computers in school, which was a new thing back then, right? Schools were just getting computers. There was a lot of games that like people will talk about now. Like you'll hear a lot of people talk about Oregon Trail, which is funny because I never played Oregon Trail as a kid.
Wow, that was like my entire 8th grade social studies class. We played that game as our social studies and went through all the events of it.
I know, but like for some reason I never got into that. But I did get into a game that you might remember. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
Oh Lord!
Now that's a game. Yeah, that's a game that basically Carmen Sandiego was this big international, like ran this international crime ring, and there was all these I don't know, like thieves and art dealers and whatnot that were doing these things, and you had to follow clues, but it also was like you had to like follow clues and take guesses as to, you know, the locations. And it was kind of like geography based. And so like it helped you learn things about interesting regions of the country. Like maybe you'd go into like Egypt and you learn about, you know, culture in Egypt or artwork in Egypt or whatever, as you're trying to like, you know, sleuth out clues and find this person to eventually try to catch Carmen Sandiego. And I think that this is a game, and I don't know if they've ever redone it or more, but of course I've never heard of anything since my childhood about it. I think this type of a game would be kind of a cool one if they could redo with a lot better graphics, because that thing looks horribly old. I tried to find a screenshot of it and pretty rough. But like that type of a game for kids, kind of like in that, you know, like maybe 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade kind of, you know, area, I think is cool because it's interactive, it's learning, but it's also, it could, you know, have that kind of hook as, you know, it's an adventure and, you know, it's a mystery and you got to figure things out. And I think something like that could do well in a remake.
It's funny because I actually grew up with probably like the prime age for the Carmen Sandiego series as I was growing up. Some things to note about that were like, as each game went, you know, as it went more and more into it, there's a series of them. They became more and more educational as they went on. They started, like, I think it was the second one, they started bringing in more historical artifacts from that. There was even some time travel, I believe, in some of that. And it really became far more fleshed out as kind of like a social studies program, you know, involving history and geography. Right. And I liked that it was a little punishing if you did not get the answers right, which is not encouraging for someone. But
right.
But you had originally you had to kind of like have access to like you know, an atlas or
right. Yep.
As the series went on, more and more of that information was contained within the game itself. So that was awesome. As you know, obviously this is like the era where computers are exponentially growing in power year after year. So being able to contain that information, having kind of like an in-game atlas where you could kind of look through everything. I think even the Encyclopedia Britannica was a partner in one of the last ones that they did. I loved that series, and it's like, as I was like 8 when the first one came out, and then maybe 9 when the first one came out. And then as I got into, I was playing them well up into 9th grade for sure.
Yeah.
And given the technology now and what you can build into a game now, you don't even need to build that stuff into the game. You know, you could have an actual web browser built into the game where you could actually search Google and, you know, a little bit of creative licensing, and you have this fully up-to-date geography history game that's connected to social media, to search browsers, and really be able to do it. The problem, I think, is that games are now more flashy and instant gratification bites of a game. A long game like Carmen Sandiego, because it really did take a lot of time to play, isn't going to pass the attention span test, which is unfortunate. But I think if they did it creatively, it could still work, especially in a school environment, maybe.
Yeah. Did you ever catch Carmen Sandiego?
A lot.
I never caught her.
I was good at the searching and stuff.
Yeah. As long as the game retains the original "Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego" song from the TV show by the a cappella group Rockapella.
Is Carmen
Sandiego. Yeah. Yep. Anyway, that's one of the ones I thought of.
Boy, you're like all mainstream. Here I am pulling like Nietzsche's out of the corner of the cobwebs of days gone by.
I'm just surprised I literally dropped that in. Like, I know you haven't seen my games, and like you had like a ton of knowledge about that. I'm like, oh, Stu really played this thing.
No,
awesome.
I loved it. I loved it. That did not make my list because I was even thinking about this a little bit different. But D&D games, obviously, I have a thing for the CRPGs, which a lot of them are D&D related. They have roots in D&D, even like Might and Magic, Bard's Tale. They all come from a strong D&D background. So no surprise that I happened to like those games as I was a kid. Another game that was both Commodore 64 and Atari 400, 800, 1200 was a game called Telengard. Now Telengard was this game that was actually developed as a Dungeons and Dragons game, like the actual Dungeons and Dragons based off of the first box. And this guy wrote it, got some network traction, things like that. and then was picked up by an actual distributor or a publisher who, of course, then you start getting into copyright stuff. So they called it Talonguard. But this game is like as faithful a Dungeons and Dragons game as you could ever possibly get. And given the time, you were looking at like the Atari 2600 had this really crappy little blocky guy that would walk through some walls and pick up a mace. That was the advanced Dungeons and Dragons video game on Atari. This game was in depth. You had all the stats. You had a lot of events in the game. You had like things that you could pick up and interact in the world. So for its time, Talonguard was amazingly revolutionary. And I'm talking, this is early home computer days. And the best thing about it is that this game was kind of like the first roguelike game without even meaning to be a roguelike game. It was randomly generated every time. Every time you played it, you had no idea what you were getting into. And it could be vastly different. You could have entirely different monsters. So for its time, this took my breath away. And I didn't have it originally. I hate to say this, but I actually took one of my friend's discs and took it to another friend's house where I was babysitting their kids for a while and played that for a couple days. And I was a naughty kid. But this game it was crazy. And it was Dungeons and Dragons, and I was just starting to get into that. And even if it had a different name, it will always be D&D. I would love to see them do something like that now. The problem that we have is with CRPGs, they are so involved. And we see games like Pathfinder Kingmaker, and it's a huge campaign, and it's this living world. It's not just this random map. You run into roguelike games that are just simply like running around, hitting random monsters in random rooms and stuff, but they're not fully fleshed out like a D&D game is. So this would be like the perfect mesh of those ideas that I think would do really well right now, and I would love to play it.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I like that.
I did actually download it and tried to play it now and don't.
No, not yeah. I can see
the
that.
guy who wrote the game actually has it for free on his website, and it's just no good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you expect, right?
Yep.
So I love a good RTS game, and the last one I really played the mess out of was Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, which was basically Age of Empires 2 skinned with Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. However, in the RTS genre, my first love, which you would think would be like Warcraft 2 or Warcraft 3, but it's not.
Is it Dune?
No, it's Red Alert Command and Conquer.
Yes.
And I like, even to this day, I will still like go to YouTube and like pull up the Command and Conquer like a soundtrack and listen to it. Just because like that music was just drilled into me for hours and hours and hours of gameplay. But what I loved about this game was that I think it was the first time where I played a game where it was a strategy game, but I was also having to try to manage resources. And then, it was, defense and offense, and then trying to figure out what I could play my strengths to, how I enjoyed playing versus how I knew my competitors liked playing, and then try to figure out how to work around them. And I liked strategy games, but for some reason this one, it kind of had that Cold War era feel to it. Mm-hmm. And this was, early 90s, maybe like 91, 92. So we were just kind of moving past that a little bit. And, I always liked to play the Soviets, surprisingly, because they had the ability to create a nuke.
Right.
And I always wanted to nuke the entire map because I thought that was so much fun.
You're that guy.
I was that guy. I was also the guy that would build this freaking Zeppelins that would just literally hover over your base and continue to drop bombs if you were dumb enough to forget to put anti-air missiles around your base, which and inevitably my friends would forget to do that, and then all of a sudden here come 14 Zeppelins that are just going to keep bombing you because you're not going to be able to build anything. And I just sit there and babysit it. It's like, oh, I see anti-air missile coming up, I just move them over there and have them bomb that to death, and then go back to bombing their command center again. But I love that. I loved RTS games, and I feel like that type of a game could get a remake. And I almost got that at E3. They were kind of showing this last year something that looked like it. And then it turned out to be a mobile game called Command and Conquer's Generals. And it's just like a one player versus one player, and it's just mobile. And I was like, no, this is, it's not what I wanted it to be.
Well, this may surprise you, but I know a little bit about Red Alert.
That doesn't surprise me. No, it was a popular game in the day.
What's funny is your retro games are like 10 years newer than mine, and I feel sad. So I actually got into it with the original Command and Conquer, and those were good. Dune. Did you ever play Dune?
No, I didn't.
Oh my goodness, that was the mother of all RTS. But that was good. Command and Conquer to me was not what I wanted it to be. The base building felt really light. It was just base building. The story, there was a little bit of a story, it was horrible. Then there was Command and Conquer 2. I don't remember what the name of that was, but Red Alert was the third, I believe. I could be off on that. Not worth searching for.
I think Red Alert was the second one.
Maybe.
I think it was Command and Conquer. Yeah, anyway, I'll look it up.
But what I loved about Red Alert was actually the single player mode. That actually had a real campaign that you would go through all the stuff with. And it was, there was a lot of it that wasn't really necessarily base building. There was something to care about besides resource manipulation. I love the heck out of Red Alert. And I played that for days and days and days nonstop. Oh,
for sure. So there was a whole bunch. So there's a whole bunch of games here, and
after Red Alert, they all just kind of went downhill.
So the first Command and Conquer came out like in 1995, and then Red Alert came out in 96. For some reason, I thought it was like 91. Then Red Alert 2 was like 2000. Yeah, but Command and Conquer 95, Red Alert 96, but then the second one came out in 2000, and then they had like Yuri's Revenge, which was like an expansion, and then they had Command and Conquer Generals, which was whatever. Then they had Red Alert 3, and then Command and Conquer 4. Like they kept coming up with a bunch of different. There's like Tiberian Sun was one of them. I remember
Tiberian Sun actually got some attention.
Yeah, so like I know that they've done a bunch since, but like now, like if I've tried going and looking, and they've got some I think on Steam. You can do, but like a lot of them are like, you have to have Windows XP. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I'd like to see something brought into the now and redone, but go back to the old school, man. Just, get rid of all the new stuff. Just go back to what it used to be.
I don't know. I like some of the grand strategy stuff now though, which is like Red Alert is a single blip on a planet kind of thing. But I did love Red Alert for sure. And I did like the old time RTSs and Warcraft, obviously, and good times. Good choice. My next one was probably, back to being a bad kid. There was a friend and I this was like 6th grade. So, 85. He and I would slough and stay home. His dad left every day, and we would just walk right back to his house and play Vanguard on Atari 2600. This is like the scrolling shooter, space shooter like Raiden. I don't know if you're familiar with those. So the thing about this was that the boards would sometimes go in different directions. They weren't just horizontal. Some of the levels were vertical, some of them were diagonal. And the thing that was kind of revolutionary about the arcade version of this is that this was actually a twin stick shooter. And flying through space and being able to shoot in the different directions. You had some fuel management, to where you had to keep killing in order to keep your ship flying. And I'm not really a fan of space shooters much, but this one definitely for some reason really sucked me in. And after I got in trouble for the whole sloughing thing, I did end up with a copy of my own, played that to death. But it was very different from everything that was out there. They had the twin stick idea on VIC-20 where you'd actually use a joystick and a keyboard to manage those things. It was a lot of fun. Nothing really hugely in depth with that, except the boards just kept going and going, and they were very interesting. The color schemes were fantastic. So given how we have some modern day space shooters and those kinds of things, I would love to see like a twin stick shooter Vanguard revamp, and maybe like keyboard and mouse something, or somehow use a Steam controller or whatever, but something that made it kind of unique. That would be a good thing. Pretty simple. I mean, nothing too hardcore there, but it was just such a great game.
Yeah. All right, Stu, my next one.
All right,
This
let's
is
see what I
one-
know.
This is yeah, exactly. This one might surprise you a little bit because this
Oh.
is not my normal
Dance Dance Revolution?
genre. No. I don't know if you remember, but EA had some boxing games back in the day, and they were a big title.
did.
They were the Fight Night series.
Yeah.
And I remember that I had Fight Night. I think I started on 2, like Fight Night round 2, Fight Night round 3, and then I think I had Fight Night round 4. And that's kind of where I stopped. I know they came out with one called Champion, but I never picked that up. But Fight Night was a boxing game, and you got to literally, for me, it was kind of the spiritual successor to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, because you got to follow the career of an up-and-coming boxer and try to go the entire way from, a nobody amateur all the way up to the champ of the world, whether it was, a lightweight, welterweight, or heavyweight, whatever, super heavyweight, whatever weight class you wanted to pick. But I loved it because, especially on like the PS4, and I think it started with Fight Night Round 3, like they started doing all the punching on the analog sticks. And so you could dodge and you can, go side to side and counter punch, and then, select your punches on the sticks. And I would wear my sticks out and give myself the worst thumb cramps playing the campaign of that. Like, I didn't even play the online stuff because I just would get torched by these, 12-year-old kids for some reason. But I tried to, win the title and get all the way, and I'd always get to like first. I'd be like, the guy that's, ranked, first right behind the champ. And then by that point, like my guy was always like 31, 32 years old, kind of just up there where I just didn't have quite the stamina to knock off the guy that's like 27. And I dropped down a couple and I get back down to fourth and then work my way back up and then dropped. And I couldn't seem to break it and actually get it. But I also played a ton as an amateur when I'd get these games to try to, get the feel for the game. But they were a lot of fun. They were just addictive. And I don't know why, but I could pick it up and I could, play a couple boxing, matches and then put it down and go to sleep. The first one came out, obviously like years and years ago, but we haven't seen one since like 2011.
Yeah.
So, we're talking 7 years is the last time we've seen one of these games. I could use a new boxing game. I could use a new Fight Night.
So this may surprise you.
Nope, it's not going to.
I know a little something about this. I was neck deep into boxing games for a while.
Really?
So Punch-Out definitely got that itch going and never really went away, or it didn't go away for a really long time. There was also there was an arcade game where you had these two levers that you held onto and
Yes.
you actually thrust forward
Yes.
with the boxing. That was my exercise for almost like 6 months at Fashion Place Mall. They had one, and
Which is kind of like what the Wii did eventually, right? You
Yeah.
hold the little thing and do that. Yeah.
oh hey, I had those exercise games. I really did. I used them for like 2 weeks at a time.
Right.
But the Fight Night stuff, one of the things I loved about EA Sports in general was that was really the first meta series of games where you really focused on careers. So like
Yeah.
if it was like a baseball game, it was like the entire season. It was the entire, the stats of the entire team. You managed all of it. Fight Night I loved because you were managing the career of it and you had training sessions in between.
Yes.
Right? And
man.
I got hardcore into those. Me and my stepdad actually played the first one together. And that was like a weird bonding thing because really my stepdad, not a good person. But for some reason, work and video games were the two things we actually got along with.
And the games had great music too.
It was an immersive experience. And that's weird to think for a sports game because usually you're managing a team and everything. But with the boxing game, you're managing a single fighter.
Yeah.
You're really responsible for like their growth. And yeah, age starts to wear on you. And I love those. And I had every single one that came out, I think, all the way through the end of the series. I was deep into Fight Night, sir.
Yeah, we just haven't got one though on a current gen. Like I was looking, it's like PS3, Xbox 360, like early in those cycles. I'm like, we need something new.
Could you imagine what you could do with a boxing game on like Xbox Connect?
Oh, yeah.
Or even with just the controllers on the the Switch. I mean, they actually had some boxing stuff in the Wii and Wii U exercise games, but
and the Switch does have that game Arms, but I'm like, that's not like I'm looking for a Fight Night remake, like something in that, go back and do that.
No, I would love that. As a matter of fact, I'm adding that to my last thing.
Nice.
Well, the last thing I have isn't so much a specific game, but I was thinking like not just what would I want to see remade, because honestly, I thought of a lot of games and I looked them up, and frankly, most games have been either remade or still exist.
Right. Like I didn't want to talk about Final Fantasy VII because I know that's already in the works and happening. Yeah.
Right. But what I was thinking is like old school games I would want to experience in VR.
Ooh, okay.
And my initial thought really was
Leisure Suit Larry. I'm messing.
I have that. No,
in VR.
We can't talk about that on this podcast, sir. Just totally kidding there, but there are that niche has been filled. But like the original RPGs, like the 3D ones where you're kind of like going through the hall with Wizardry, Bard's Tale, Ultima 1 through 3, Dungeon Master, where it's really just like you're going one block on a grid map at a time. You can turn and look each of the 4 directions. Boom, oops, accidentally run into a monster, or you could throw your axe down the hall. I mean, really simple original RPGs, but I would love to see something like that in VR. And I'm not talking like this fully fleshed, realistic new age kind of thing, because VR tech, it's difficult to get that much memory and stuff. But if you simply had like Wizardry or Bard's Tale in VR, as it was blown up into a VR spectacle so that you could actually at least turn, that would blow me away. I would love to live inside one of those games, especially given that I have been playing Bard's Tale a little bit here and there lately. Fight Night, though. Mm-hmm. How would that do in VR? There are actually some fighting games, but they're all like really fast, action-paced kind of stuff, not legit boxing kind of.
Yeah.
That would be intense.
Man, I totally would come over to your house to play that.
Unfortunately, with VR, you are actually moving your body, so some uppercuts could actually occur.
Right. Yeah. And that's probably why it hasn't happened. Honestly, officer, I didn't mean to hit her. I was playing the boxing game in VR.
She was a great big dragon. That's why I stabbed her.
Right, exactly. Come with us, son. Yeah.
I'm 45. Don't call me son. I'm not your son. I don't know.
Okay, so the last one I've got. This game came out in 2002. This is definitely a more modern game as well that I was thinking about. Because like you said, I thought of a lot of old school games. Like I was like, oh, like Super Mario Brothers 3. But like they kind of did that with the new Super Mario Brothers that released on the Wii, and I think it's coming to Switch.
Yeah, I went there too.
Yeah, so like I had some of those same things. So I had to find, I was thinking of like other things that I really loved that I'm hoping for remakes of, and then some of them have been announced. But in 2002, there was a game that came out that I fell in love with. It was Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell.
Are we calling 2002 retro now? Ouch.
I mean, that was 16 years ago. So I was married to my first wife at the time. So yes, it feels like a long time ago, another lifetime. So 16 years ago, Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell came out. What I really liked about this game is that it was, for the time, it was kind of high tech. You were playing as a Black Ops operator named Sam Fisher. You were part of the NSA, but like this like kind of subdivision called like Third Echelon, and it was your job to go in and to do jobs that couldn't be officially sanctioned or done, right? But what was cool about the game for me was it was, in my memory, one of the first really big stealth games that had a modern feel to it, and you had to, at least the way I played, because that first game I felt was like punishing with ammo. So like if you just went run and gun and you blew through all your ammo in the first couple minutes of a level, you may not find any more ammo, but yet you still have certain objectives you have to meet. So if you did something wrong, you'd have to go back to a save point. And that could mean like maybe going back a couple minutes of gameplay. It could also mean going back like 10 minutes of gameplay or 15 minutes of gameplay, which in a stealth game, that could be a lot of work. And I remember playing a level called the Tosobu Meats Factory, where there's like these two rooms kind of on opposite sides of each other of this bigger room. And basically one side has hostages, the other side has some like Chinese government officials, and I have to protect both of them. But I had blown through a lot of my ammo, and so I had something only like 30 rounds and like a wall mine. And I had to replay that dang level probably 20, 25 times, and each time took me, maybe like 4 or 5 minutes to kind of go through the scenario to find just the right way to place the mine, just the right place to stand and figure out like, okay, I've got to shoot 6 shots from here. Then I have to switch positions so I can get 2 headshots here to conserve ammo. Then switch back to the first position again so I can ambush a couple of these guys. Then move up real close so I can do a knife takedown and then back up again for like 2 last shots. Something like that. Like I had to get really creative with how I was going to do that. But I loved that about that game because every time I'd pick up ammo, like I'd be super conservative. So I'd try to stealth take down everyone and, jump them from behind and, break their neck or, stab them or just, knock them unconscious, then drag their bodies off into the shadows or, put them under a pile of leaves or toss them in a dumpster and close the dumpster, whatever it was. But as that series kind of went on, I felt like the intensity, maybe the punishing, factor kind of got a little easier. Like I felt like the second game was easier than the first. I felt like the third was a walk in the park compared to the first. And the last time a Splinter Cell game was made, it was 2013. So I know that's only 5 years ago, but I don't think it was super well reviewed and it wasn't played a lot. So I feel like the series is realistically, most people kind of remember the series from back in about 2006. They don't remember like the last 2 that kind of came out. And so I would love to see a remake of the first game, even if it's not exactly the same story, but like go back to your roots, make it hard, make it so that you got to shoot that sticky shocker when all 3 of those guys patrolling happen to put their foot in the puddle at the exact same split second so you can knock all 3 out and only use 1 sticky shocker instead of having to, open up fire and whatnot. Make it difficult, make it a challenge, and up that stealth, because that was like, for me, that was just a big thing. I loved that game.
Well, for once, you're not going to get a lot of input from me. I never really got into that. Though, interesting factoid, would you believe that the original Deus Ex was released on VIC-20 and then improved for Commodore 64?
Really?
Because Deus Ex is like kind of the modern version of the stealth game, right?
Yeah.
And that stuff was around way back when. But I didn't get into it. That definitely has, even though I know the focus is different, that kind of falls into the whole first-person shooter aspect for me, which I'm not a huge fan of. And
yes, see, it's a third-person stealth game, though.
Third-person,
yeah, I know.
It's same stylization of game that I'm not really a fan of.
Yeah,
so.
But you also had Michael Ironside. No, Michael Ironside. Jeremy Irons, I think, was the voice of Sam Fisher in those games.
That's not gonna sell me on a game.
No, but true. I get that. However, it was freaking like the voice acting was freaking awesome in it. So like in the first game, and it was just it was good. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Speaking of Pathfinder Kingmaker, a lot of voiceover stuff.
Yeah.
Anywho.
Yeah. Did you have any other remakes, things you want to see? I mean, besides like the obvious, like Final Fantasy VII.
No, I was so Final Fantasy VII. I think is your hopefully dream realized here soon.
I don't know, maybe.
But my big ones that I always wanted to see were a Bard's Tale 4, which just came out, as well as Star Control. That was a game I really wanted to come back, and that just came out with Star Control Origins. Those are 2 very heavy blips on my map, but I'm excited to relive those. Star Control was crazy fun. Anywho,
I can think of a number of games I would not like to see remade.
yeah.
But that's a different podcast. Super Friends, here's the thing. I want to hear from you. I want to know, what is a game you want to see remade? Something from your childhood, something even like, maybe it's only within the last 5 to 10 years, but you think needs to have a redo or a remake. Let us know next week. We'll read your answers. I promise this time I will put it out on social media. You can get us on our email, fortofnerd@gmail.com, Facebook, which is facebook.com/fortofnerd, Twitter @fortofnerd, or our phone number 801-477-7687. And we'll hear from you next week, and we'll go into that. Which, Stu, next week is 99. We are so close to that 100th episode.
That's 2 weeks I need to survive.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it. For the show, for the Super Friends.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for the kids, for the children.
They're our future.
Well, Stu, I'm glad you're able to make it tonight. I know you're under the weather, and even that 2 bowls of chicken noodle soup you've had probably has helped. But man, it's time to get some rest.
Yes, sir, it is. But now I have 8-bit MIDI sounds floating through my head from all this thinking about retro games, so I'll never sleep again.
Either that, or you're gonna have wonderful, wonderful dreams.
I might play Dance Dance Revolution in my dreams.
Well, that'll be a nightmare. But sure, whatever you want to do. Well, Super Friends, from all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you. Always. I love it. I'm keeping it.
Good.